what life would have been like with my right hand missing. And there's nobody understands that more than you do, but that would have severely altered my life. If you were my son at 8 years old and I was your father and I loved you as much as I love Bo or anybody else I've ever loved, I think I would want you to die.
Today, I have the distinct honor of traveling to California with my wife and children and visiting with two friends. And right now I'm recording with one of them. His name is John Joseph Corbett Jr. Husband of Bo Derek, friend of John O'Leary, John Corbett himself. Welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah. I'm a husband for 3 years now. We've been married for 3 years. We just went on our honeymoon, our belated honeymoon. And I said, "Where do you want to go, baby?" And we went to January. I've never been to Paris. So she said, "Let's go to Paris." So we went to Paris for a week and got a sweet little hotel and walked around. I think we took a taxi to the airport on the last day. And that's the only time we had transportation. We walked everywhere. It was great.
For many of our guests around here, John, I introduced them by talking about how they were an astronaut or they climbed Everest. When people think they recognize you, or maybe said better, when you introduce yourself to someone who does not know you and they ask you, "John Corbett, what do you do?" When you answer that question, man, what do you do for a living? How do you respond to that?
If I were on an airplane and I sat down next to somebody for a 3-hour flight and they didn't recognize me, and I would probably say, if they didn't recognize me from 40 years of television and movies, which happens, it happens. But if they didn't, I would probably say I was retired. I wouldn't say I was an actor, because the next obvious question is, what have I seen you in? So I will end up talking about my work for most of the flight, which anybody who works, that's kind of the last thing you ever want to talk about, whether you're a heart surgeon, actor, or a TV repairman. When you're not doing it, you think about it when you're doing it, but when you're not, you know, it's kind of a boring conversation,
right?
Especially for an actor, because then it just becomes you talking about yourself and maybe what is William H. Macy like, you know? And so, when they don't, that's usually what I say. I'm retired. From what? And I'll say, I started in the steel industry with my dad in 1980. So I'll generally lie and just say, from the steel industry. And it's dead there. And then we're not talking about me anymore.
So what you're hearing from my friend, John Corbett, is the humility that I saw when he was out of retirement and on set, and why he was everybody's tied for favorite person to spend time with. Just anyone you bumped into while you were on set or walking in and out of the hotel or in and out of a restaurant while in town loved their experience with you. And what I found, John, with you and kind of doing a little bit of legwork is that's universal. You're beloved where you go, man. So I'm excited to share part of that story of love with our listeners and viewers. You've been living it now for a few years. So let's back up the train a little bit out of Hollywood. Okay. We're going to back all the way up to West Virginia, Wheeling, West Virginia. Yeah. May 9th, 1961.
That's when I was born.
Let's go all the way back, man. So let's just spend some time talking about Sandra, your mom.
Yeah. Okay. What do you want to know?
I want to know what she was like as a mom, growing up in particular.
Sandy had me when she was 20. She met a guy in a bar named John Corbett, who was just out of the military, out of the Army. And they did the dirty. And 9 months later, I came along, and John had left for California to work for Firestone Rubber Company. And so I don't think John saw me, my dad, until I was probably almost a year old. He came back, loaded us up in a car, and we drove just about an hour south of where I live here by Santa Barbara to a town called Oxnard, where we lived until I was probably almost 3 years old. And then Sandy and John was also only 20 years older than I was, split up. And we took a train back to West Virginia and lived with my grandma and until I was 18. And in those in those intermittent years, I saw my dad, I think once every 6 or 7 years. His family lived across the river in Bel Air, Ohio from Wheeling, West Virginia. I saw him about every 6 years for a weekend. You know, he was very nice, but I didn't know him. I just showed up on his door in 1980, 79 or 80 after I graduated from high school. But Sandy, back to Sandy, she worked in a hospital. She worked in the supply room, you know, cleaning things and repackage them in the hospital that we were both born in. The same doctor, Dr. Joseph, delivered both of us, who was my doctor until I was about 8 years old. She didn't graduate from high school. She was very funny, very pretty. When I was 5, she ended up meeting a man named Bill, who was a coal miner, who was her age. And they got married, I guess, when I was maybe, 10. But they were together till my mom died in 2012. And Bill and my real father died in 2010, funny enough, Bill and John. So Bill was a coal miner, very simple man, very almost like Forrest Gump, you know, very simple man. I called him Bill. I never called him Dad. But Sandy had a wicked sense of humor, was a tough woman, would get into a fight, carried a gun in her purse, used the F word a lot. And as you know, I'm not going to use it today, but it's a noun. And a verb.
My mom was that close to turning the volume down. Mom, we're fine. John is on his best behavior today. He's pinching his legs to make sure he does not curse, but he's going to be fine during this episode.
If I can share the F word with you, when I must have been 6 or 7 or 8, you know, my mom was a mom, but also like a sister, right? And Bill had, my stepdad, instructions. This is not your child. You don't discipline this child. So when I was 6 or 7, we would be screaming F you to each other. Can you imagine the look on my buddies' faces when this little 6, 7-year-old boy is screaming and she's screaming it back to me? So, you know, we loved each other so much, but we grew up in this little part of Wheeling called East Wheeling. It was probably, our neighborhood was 80% Black. We were one of the 20% white families there. And you could call it poor, but, you know, we lived in it was a 5-story apartment. There were 3 sections of it. We were on the first floor. That's the apartment that I lived in from 3 years old till I was 24. I had been gone for 5 years. My mom still lived there. I think the rent when I left home was $80 a month, but my mom was great. She went to the Salvation Army and she got great furniture and she was way ahead of her time. She would paint chest of drawers and, you know, our whole place was new shag carpeting and we had like a black leather couch. You know, it was very clean. She painted everything. So it looked just like when I was growing up, just like the house maybe the Partridge Family or the Brady Bunch lived in, you know, even though it was in a kind of bad part of town. I was the only child. Bill was a coal miner. He made pretty decent money. So looking back at it, I guess you could say we were on the lower end of things, but man, we ate out. We went to the Burger King and McDonald's. I mean, all the time. We took summer vacations to a place called Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. We stayed in hotels. I got whatever I wanted for Christmas, bikes and guitars, you know, so I thought it was like a kind of a rich kid. You know, I've been to your house. And you know, look, your dad was an attorney. You live in a very affluent, I've been to the house you grew up in. In Wheeling, that would have been definitely where the rich people lived, right? And we lived whatever that version is in St. Louis of what I'm describing. That's where we lived. But God, it just didn't feel like it. You know, everybody was friendly. It was not unlike Hell's Kitchen, where in the summertime, it's very humid. People would be sitting out on the front steps talking to each other. You know, it was just a line of apartments.
On the flat out here, I happen to sit next to a fellow interviewer named Grace O'Leary. She's 12. She watched your performances. She's seen your movies. And I said, what question would you like me to ask Mr. Corbett? She looked out the window, thought for a moment and said, what did he want to be when he was a little boy? So John Corbett, as you are looking at your mother's furniture and as you're going on these vacations to Sandusky and all the other things you were doing and looking ahead, what were you imagining your life might look like?
I was sort of in love with kind of pop stars back then. You know, my mom would buy me Tiger Beat magazine and stuff like that. So I loved the look of, say, David Cassidy and the Osmond brothers And I was kind of musical. I got a guitar when I was 7 and I would sing in my room. So I just, they had great long hair. Look, I still even wear my hair long. They had cool clothes and Converses. And I think I kind of wanted to be sort of famous in a pop starry way. I never had the desire to be the typical, astronaut or fireman or policeman or military guy or anything like that. I always wanted to kind of be a famous pop star.
Gosh, dude, it happened. I mean,
it did kind of happen.
It's unbelievable. We'll talk about the music in a moment because that's also part of the story, but it certainly happened with television, with commercials, with movies. You became a star.
I did.
You left Wheeling, and we could spend a whole podcast talking about growing up, but let's leave for a minute. You went out to California at about age 18?
Yeah.
Why?
Drove out. I worked in a little beer carry-out school. I wasn't going to college after high school, and my 3 friends were driving out to San Jose. My buddy Gil, Moose, and Scott Delbrook, and they had a little Toyota truck with a little cab on the back, and Gil was going to San Jose State, and they were driving out, and Scott Delbrook bailed out. They came to me and said, "Hey, we're driving across country. We're going to stay out there for about 2 weeks." Moose and Scott were saying, but now it would be me, John, and Moose, and we will fly back. So I quit my job at this little beer carry out, and off we went. It took us 5 days. 2 could sit in the front of this little truck, and 1 had to sit in the back. I found a picture of it recently somewhere on a beanbag, right? Oh, and so we left in March. I think we left on March 8th or 14th, 1980. And we drove right through St. Louis, and I remember seeing the Arch. Then we got to the Grand Canyon. We got to San Jose. We hung out there for a few days. Gil signed up for class, and I decided I wasn't going back to Wheeling. I was going to get on a Greyhound bus and go find my dad, who came to my high school graduation in May of 79.
Can I pause you there for a moment? For relationships to work requires the investment of time.
Yeah.
That's true with family. It's true with friends, dating, whatever it is. And so even though the job title is dad, when you only see a guy 3 or 4 times by the time you graduate high school, what type of relationship is there between you and your father as you take the Greyhound from San Jose down to LA to knock on his apartment door? What is that relationship like at that point?
It's like I knew my mailman better than this guy, but he was charming. He was funny. He always had a big mustache. He lost a lot of his hair when he was 24. He kind of looked like Dr. Phil, actually. But, I'm a tall guy. I'm 215 pounds, 6'5", and he was exactly that. So I wasn't quite filled out at 18, but I was close. So he was a charming fella. He was a big drinker. So when he would come back and I'd see him those few times from being a boy on those weekends, he'd be a little drunk when he'd come over to our apartment. He was a Jehovah's Witness.
How about that?
So that was tricky. I was raised Catholic, and the Jehovah's are, they're a little pressing with their wanting to get you into the club. And so his whole family, I wouldn't see his family ever. They were just across the river. But on that weekend, I would be around them all. And he had 5 brothers and sisters and a mom and dad. And they were all very nice, but they sure wanted to get me into their club. And, I wasn't even into the club I was in, which was being an altar boy and in the Catholic school. But, being an altar boy, you see behind the curtains. I'm hanging out with the priest on Friday nights driving around. He's only 24. He's smoking cigarettes. Let me have a few puffs, when I'm 13 and 14. So when I decided to go see him, it was only because he was a smart man. He was the smartest guy I know. He was a watchmaker. He was a welder, a nuclear welder. He helped build San Onofre power plant down San Diego. And a mechanic, you could give him anything, a box of anything. He could make something that worked out of it, right? So I knew if I showed up at his door, I liked him. He was very sweet. There wouldn't be a "what are you doing here" kind of thing. There would be a big embrace.
Okay.
Hey, son. He had a real deep voice, like John Wayne almost. It's like he stole John Wayne's voice. And he would get me a job. I was making $3 an hour. And he got me a job the first week. It's 1980. I'm making $20 an hour.
In steel.
In the steel industry, which I did for a few years. So are we father and son? Nope. Are we drinking buddies? Oh, yeah. So, in West Virginia, you could drink at 18 back at that time. So, of course, when you're 16, you had a fake ID. So at 16, I'm in bars with grown men ordering 7-7s and Jack and Cokes at 16, drinking with 40-year-old men, and nobody's saying, hey, this ID doesn't look right because I'm tall. So by the time I got to California, now it's drinking age in California, 21. I still got my fake ID. So I'm going out to have drinks with my dad. He let me stay with him for about 6 months. So he loved it. And I kind of loved it too. So we never, in all those years, we never had one argument, not one fight. It was like I was his pal.
Did you ever say, hey, Dad, where were you? Like, why didn't you come home more than every 6 years?
When he had 5 drinks in him, he would get a little teary and apologize for not being there for me. He sent his child support, which I think was $100 a month. He was always on time with that. But he had also met a woman and had another family. She had a daughter my age named Candy, who was a very sweet girl. But he was raising, they had, we lived in that apartment. We didn't have a car. They had 3 cars and a house down in Southern California. And so when I saw all that, it was like, oh, wow, we live in that kind of funky little apartment, that $100 a month didn't stretch out too far. But he would always, I'm so happy your mom never poisoned your mind with me, which she never did. She never did at one time. And I didn't care.
Yeah.
Because he was my drinking buddy, but he wasn't a great husband, cheated a lot, and he wasn't a great father, yelled a lot, right? So if I had grown up with this guy, I'd have been a different guy. I would have been squelched down, I think, because that was kind of his nature. I think he was just too afraid to maybe lose me a second time. And I'm a fun kid, so I don't think he wanted to ever get in a position where I'm like, hey, buddy, I don't need you. See ya.
So you, when you are on flights now, tell people you're retired.
Yeah.
I know better. Not only do I know that you're still working, I also know you've had a wild resume that got you into this career in the first place. So I'm going to walk through a couple of your jobs.
All right.
And tell me what you learned positively from them.
Okay.
So hydro testing.
Yeah.
What did you learn in the years that you worked with steel hydro testing?
You're the only guy that's ever said hydro testing except me and the other hydro testers.
Well, I need to figure out what it is, man. So tell me what you learned that meant something to your later on life.
This was in the Boilermakers Union, and we were at the base of the San Bernardino Mountains, and it gets cold. Don't get fooled, folks. In California, it gets cold. And we were in a big open-ended on each end factory, right? Where the wind would just howl through. We were making pipes for the oil fields in Texas. And they're probably 100-foot long, as big around as you can, make a circle with your arms and touch your fingers, an inch thick. We would make them. They'd be on a big assembly line. So by the time they got to us, we had to get them into this machine, which would buckle up each end of them and put about 17 or 1,800 pounds of pressure of water in there to make sure the welds would hold down on the ground, which probably 1 or 2 out of 10 wouldn't. And this thing, it almost killed a guy one time. It hit him. He went flying 40 feet. So, there's a big assembly line of them. So you got to move quick, right? And there's a guy working the machine and 2 guys hustling these things into the clamps. From the first minute of the first test, you are soaked. It's like a 20-foot tidal wave. When they back that thing off, all that pressure, it just washes over you. You have some like rain gear on, but it's like, oh man, you're freezing cold. We had a gas fire there where we would stand and try to warm up, but you're soaked. And we worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. So we worked 60 hours a week doing this. And I did this for years. I guess what I learned was, look, it's an assembly line. And that's kind of what acting is, right? It's an assembly line. Like I'm just doing my one little job as an actor or working the hydro tester. There's welders up there. There's guys shaving the ridges off so they're not so sharp and cut your hands with files. And so when one pipe gets messed up, the whole thing shuts down because it's not now moving to the guys that take it off and go stack it out in the yard. So I learned a kind of, not a military, I've never been in the military, but a kind of a work discipline, right? I had to get up. You didn't mess around. You got to be at work. So, I'd have to leave my house at 5 a.m. every day to get to where the factory was. It was a good discipline.
Yes.
It taught you how how to show up and work. And I was young. I was 18. I'm working mostly with 30, 40, 50-year-old men in there. I was like one of the younger guys. So it was just a good discipline. It gave me a good work ethic, a solid work ethic that I already had from West Virginia because I had jobs working in Penny's shoes or sweeping up the Coliseum after shows at like 14, 15. We'd stay up all night. Me and my buddy Greg sweeping up the Civic Center because Styx just played, for $3 or $4 an hour in cash. So I always kind of had that, but that Steel Factory stuff was good foundation.
Corbett, if you had not been injured, would you have been on a totally different path professionally long-term?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's ultimately what chased you away, that you got hurt.
Yeah, I hurt my back. Those pipes I'm talking about. I'll tell you something because you've lost your fingers, right? So when the pipes, man, I lost my hand, my whole hand this much from my wrist up for the people that are listening within 1 second. So these pipes, after we test them, they'd roll down to some rollers and have to go outside. And when the rollers got shut down, you had to go give them a big push, to get them started because the little motors weren't enough to take this heavy weight. So one day the pipes, and you wore earplugs, the factory's so loud, so you got earplugs in. So one day the pipe hasn't moved in about 5 minutes. And now we can't test another one until this one to the right goes. So I go down and I'm waiting for the guys to give me the sign to push it. I'm holding on to this thing for about 6 minutes. Nothing. What is going on? I take a step to look out. Boom! The assembly line here, they sent one down. And the weight, and shut the thing off, but the weight of it kept it going for like a minute. And they're yelling and screaming, and I can't hear them, right? Because some of the loudest thing. If I had stayed there one more second, that pipe would have hit this pipe like this and have taken my whole hand off. And I still think about what life would have been like with my right hand missing, and there's nobody understands that more than you do. But that would have severely, altered my life, because look, you don't have fingers, but you just played the piano for me in my house. Coldplay. I mean, it was amazing to, you figuring out how to do that. Most of us have our fingers in our hands and we grab stuff and we don't even think about it. It's like your eyes, you're looking around. I'm looking at me. I'm looking at you right now. We don't think about it, but imagine what it's like for a blind guy.
Yeah.
It's like, I wish I could see for 2 seconds. So grabbing things with your hands is something, you don't really process, but sometimes I think about like I love playing guitar.
Yeah.
Now, would I be able to do that if I didn't have a right hand? Yeah. I don't know why I got off on that because you asked me something else about the
I'm actually glad you did, because even in the answer you're sharing that the trajectory would have been radically different. Had you lost your hand,
if I didn't get hurt,
it ends up in a different place.
Yeah.
If you don't get hurt, you end up in a different place.
Yeah.
And you end up ultimately in the perfect place. Not probably the path you would have selected, but the path that was required.
Yeah. I wasn't just killing time in the steel factory to maybe become an actor one day. That was like, I lived 30 miles south of Hollywood for years. And the only 2 times I had been to Hollywood, we went to see Family Feud once because somebody gave us some tickets. And I think the other time was to like walk around and look at the stars on the sidewalk. Right. It might as well have been 300 miles away. It's like I didn't go to California to become an actor.
So I'm going to accelerate around the first turn and go right into acting. Okay. I was going to ask you about sheriff deputies and hairstylists and all these other jobs that you either took or you were considering taking.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you go into a class, as I understand it, you're about age 25. It's an improv class at local college.
That's right. When I got hurt, the 30-second version is when I hurt my back, I couldn't do manual labor anymore. And my dad had learned to weld at this place called Cerritos College, right? When he was in his early 20s. So he said, go back to school, get your education. So I went back to school, 4 years or so after I got out of high school. I was a horrible student because of ADD. And I was just in 2 weeks in this school failing, everything, sociology, human sexuality, English, trying to take an algebra class. And I was just lost. In 2 weeks, I was lost, so read 5 chapters tonight. And I was never a very strong reader. And so I was in the cafeteria one day and I met these kids that were up at the next table and I could hear them making some jokes about something. And I chimed in and they laughed. I was in my 20s. They were just out of high school. They were 18. And I was killing time, like 2 hours between class. And then they came down and were talking to me. And then they're like, we got to go to class right now. You want to come with us? What do you mean? We're going to go to our improv class. We're actors.
It's a great class.
I'm like, what? I can just come with you? I like these kids, so I want to hang out with them more. And I still had like an hour and a half till I had to go somewhere. Come. So we go over to this theater. And I'm like, I can just come in. Your teacher walk into this theater. Everything's black. Big black boxes. Air conditioned. So cold in there. Black curtains from floor to ceiling. Everything else is painted black. Wow. Look at this little bit of an accelerated seating. What do you call that?
Stadium or whatever.
Kind of seating for 100 people or whatever. And I meet, hey, who's your buddy? Giving me hugs. I'd been in these classes. I haven't even talked to the people next to me. Who's your buddy? Hi, I'm John. I met these guys over here. Sit down. They start to do an improv. The teacher's like, hi, I'm Georgia. Georgia Well is her name. I'm sitting there watching. At the end of it, she goes, John, would you like to get up and do an improv? Now, it's not my nature to get up and do that, but I was always kind of a funny guy, right? My friends always thought I was funny. And I'd seen what they were doing, thinking, that's not that hard. You know what I mean? I got up, I robbed the guy at a 7-Eleven. And then as I got the money, I took a step to leave and then came back and made him drop his pants. I got a huge laugh. And that was it. It's like, holy hell. I was funny just now. And these 30 kids or less laughed in unison. Like sound came out of their mouth. A laugh is hard to do.
Addictive, man.
It's spontaneous.
Yes.
It's like a hiccup or a sneeze. You and I can fake laugh right now. Ha ha ha. But to make air come out of your mouth and do that, it's kind of a wonder. And I said to her after, can I sign up for this class? Even though it's 2 weeks, she goes, of course. Go over to the student body or whatever it was. I went over, I dropped all those other classes. I came back and signed up for all the acting classes.
Wow.
And I was in a play. I was in Hair a month later.
When did you realize you had a natural gift? I think there's a lot of theater kids and a lot of us who, you and I just played the piano together, who wish we had a gift, but we like doing something that's very different than recognizing you're set apart, that you really do have something unique. You're not just you have a sweet voice and a beautiful face, but you have a talent, John. When did you recognize you had a talent?
It's not easy to be an actor when you first decide to do it. You're very nervous. You shake. You don't know what to do with your body. Now you've got 20 kids watching you. But if you can just keep trying to do it, do scenes with somebody and work on those scenes and then get up and present them, there's a sense of accomplishment that you can get out of it that I've never really gotten anywhere else. I'm not creating anything. I didn't write these words, and I'm just sort of memorizing them, then saying them with some emotion. I'm trying to say them as if I'm saying them for the first time with this lady who I've been married to for 10 years, but I just met her, 3 days ago. And we're trying to create this fake relationship that's as real as it can kind of be. And when you sort of learn how to do that, it takes a lot of failing, but when you sort of start to learn how to do that a little bit, it's really a good feeling. So I guess it wasn't long after those classes that I thought, I always drew pictures and had watercolors and could always play a little bit of guitar and sing. I never wrote my own songs, so I'd sing Eagles songs, Take It Easy and stuff like that, which was always fun. But I never felt like I was, kind of making something. But in this acting thing, even though I wasn't making those words up, I felt like I was making this life. It wasn't my life, but man, if I said this sometime, if I believed it, like water would come out of my eyes. If we were doing an emotional scene, like, I've broken up with girls that I loved before and never made water didn't come out of my eyes. How am I saying these lines? It's not even true. We didn't just lose a baby. I don't even know your last name, but I'm doing this scene where we just lost our baby and water's coming out of my eyes. It's another phenomenon.
Why is that? What is going on there?
I just think it's acting is if you never ever decide to, good luck trying to make a living acting for the last 40 years and living in a
high
nice
percentage
house.
of success.
Yeah.
Right.
And living in a nice house. That's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But if I'm suggesting to people out there, wherever they live at their little local community college, if you have the time and can take an acting class, it feels awesome. Good. It's like if you take a yoga class or I don't know. And it's an expression. You can express yourself in it. You know, it's kind of like getting drunk and with your buddy. And now I can express myself and I love you, buddy. And maybe water will come out of your eyes then. But the acting class, I think everybody should take some acting classes because you can learn a little bit about yourself.
These acting classes lead this West Virginia kid to begin to recognize that you do indeed have a gift. You slowly make your way into the space of more professional acting. You start doing commercials. You become quite successful, man, in this space.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 commercials.
Yeah.
DSL, Samsung, Black Star Beer.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's what happened. I'm living down in Bellflower, 30 miles south. And this lady who's now been my teacher and put me in a bunch of plays for 2 years says, I think you could do this for a living, but you need to move to Hollywood. You got to be in it. Like, what? I live with my girlfriend here. She's a hairdresser. We have a nice little apartment over here. I don't want to move to Hollywood. But she said it's now or never. You're already too old, right? To start
25, 26.
Yeah. So I do it. I don't know if I can do it, but I do it. But at this point, I'd been doing extra work. So I'm an extra on Cagney and Lacey, Chips. I mean, my mom's watching me on TV every week. I mean, Mom, I'm going to be in that opening scene where the lady gets hit by a car and I'm getting like close-ups, seeing the lady. So she's having everybody over. Sandy's having everybody over. It's like I'm the guest star of Chips or Cagney and Lacey or whatever I'm in, and I'm telling her what I'm going to be in. And I mean, I might as well have been on the cover of TV Guide because I left home just a few years ago. Now I'm on Cagney and Lacey. How's that possible? Right. So I did that for a lot of years. So what I learned how a set operates, how to be on a set. I'm around stars. I was in Jason Patrick's first thing. I mean, here's Lindsay Wagner and Peter Coyote over here. I'm learning how to see what's this guy doing holding this thing up here. So I'm really now like a pro on a set. Even though I'm just the background player, I'm an extra. I know who's doing what and I know what's what. But I'm still down being in my plays at the community college. So I moved to Westwood, live in a 2-bedroom with 5 guys. There's 5 of us. I'm in the bedroom with 3. They're 18. Now I'm already 25. I'm in hair school in Hollywood because I think I'm going to be a hairdresser like my girlfriend because she makes a good living and I don't think I'll be a good waiter. Halfway through hair school, I get my first commercial for Samsung Electronics, 1985. Hair school takes about a year to get in and out of. So I graduate and I start working in a salon right in Hollywood. Now I moved out of Westwood and I'm in my own little $300 a month apartment in the middle of Hollywood, Franklin and Whitley, and that commercial that I did halfway through hair school, I get a job working in a hair salon, making $150 a week, hoping for some walk-ins, sweeping up, shampoo boy. The first commercial residual, it starts playing the month I get that job, $8,000 I get for that commercial residual that I worked on for 6 hours for Samsung. Next month, here's 7 or 8 or 9,000 more, right? I go down and I quit that hair job. I quit that hair job. It's like, wow, this is crazy. So in the next 3 years, I did 50 national commercials. I'm still in that $300 a month apartment. I got, $300,000 in the bank. It's unbelievable. I'm as rich as the richest man on the planet.
Yeah.
But I've always lived a simple life. In fact, these boots are my Northern Exposure boots. So, these are from 1990. I'm not a guy who buys things.
There was in preparing for this podcast, I have the good fortune of knowing you a bit just from doing a little bit of work together. And so I knew some questions I wanted to ask you, but I also had to do the work to figure out what else.
Yeah.
So I watched a recording of yours from probably 1991. You're on the front of TV Guide. Like you're a star.
I'm a star.
You're a star. But this lady asked you the question, when you first made it big, you got that first big check. What was your first big buy? And you looked out for a while. Then you looked back at her, this sweet voice, and you said, I still haven't made it. And you talked about how you're still in the same car you had 5 years ago. The suit, you pointed to your suit. You're like, I bought it at a Goodwill. And it wasn't an act. Like, I think today, if an actor did that, it's probably a shtick. Like they're trying to be a personality, even in a one-to-one recording. You just You didn't need the car. You didn't
Right.
need the suit, man. It wasn't going to define you. Neither was the $300,000 in the bank or the more that eventually would show up.
Right. That's right. I mean, look, I've made a great living. Did you see that white truck out there when you pulled up? That's my 2011 pickup truck with 60,000 miles on it. I bought that new. That's my car. I could have any Ferrari or Corvette or Rolls Royce I wanted, but like, that's my car. I mean, that's funny you're saying that because that's all true. That's been my, since I was back in West Virginia.
Right.
That's just it. Like, money doesn't mean fancy things to me. It never has. And it probably at this point, I'll be 63 in next month. It probably won't change.
So 88 Wonder Years shows up in your life.
Yeah.
1990, some little show called Northern Exposure. I'm looking at a moose right now.
That's right.
Does he have a name or no?
I call him Morty, which is the name of the moose in the opening credits that walks through town. So I call that guy Morty.
So Morty is now hanging out in the living room.
He was in, if you watch Northern Exposure, Maurice Minifield was the big astronaut tycoon of the town. Morty, when you would enter in his big log cabin, Morty was to the exact left of the entrance.
So it's one thing to be on a DSL commercial or Samsung. And even if the checks are nice, it's a commercial.
Yeah.
You're on the front of TV Guide. And for the kids listening right now, they have no idea what we're talking about. But ask your grandma after the episode ends and she'll tell you this was a big deal. When did you first recognize with Northern Exposure that, I hate the question you made it, but this was that you were at a different level than before you got the job?
Well, the reason I got the Northern Exposure is, funny enough, because of a Jack in the Box commercial where I was eating a cheeseburger and talking to the camera. And they liked this energy of this kid, and they brought me in for Northern Exposure. And a week later, I was flying to Seattle. So the commercials were actually instrumental. If I didn't do that Jack in the Box, I probably never would have got the. I wasn't getting a lot of auditions at that time, but somebody big at CBS saw that thing and they had me in. Got Northern Exposure. I went in. It goes like this: you go in and meet somebody, you read, they kind of liked it, and they're like, "We're going to take you to the network." Right. So I'd never been to the network before, but that means you go to this basement of CBS and there's two people for every role. So there's me and my guy. There's Rob Morrow was there with his guy, Janine Turner and her. And so you go in before this room of about 50 execs and you are so terrified just because there's a lot on the line. At this point, it's a pilot. It's called Northern Exposure. You don't know it's going to be one of the best shows CBS ever makes. At that point, you're just scared, like, of all this judgment.
What do you do with that? When you walk in with the anxiety and you're about to read for this, where do you go so that you can let go of the anxiety and be present?
Well, that's only happened to me one time in my life that I had to read for a network. And I was 26. I was 27 when I did that. I think I just took some deep breaths. I kind of glanced up at the people, gave them a little wave, and took some deep breaths, and then just knew what I had to do. Because at that point, I'd been doing it long enough to know that, like, I'm okay at this, and I had the whole thing memorized. So I just took a deep breath and did it and tried to be charming, and that was it. I mean, I didn't know I have any other technique. I guess I'd try to just do the same thing today if I had to go. Luckily, I don't have to go into rooms and try to win jobs now. But if I did, I'd probably just do the same thing. Give him a little thing, take a deep breath, and just jump in.
You jumped in. Were you surprised at how successful that show became?
Yeah.
Why do you think it did what it did?
I don't know. We were a summer replacement show for Knots Landing. We only made 8 episodes. And they came on, and it wasn't overwhelming. It was a summer replacement, but it did enough for them to say if we got picked up, we were going to get a second season, which would have been 20, but it didn't do well enough. So they came back to us and said, listen, guys, you all have contracts to do 20 episodes, but it's not doing what we want. We're only going to do 8 the second season, but we can't do it unless you adjust your contracts to say, and a couple of the people didn't want to do that. So they were maybe going to have to recast them, but I was like, fine. But you know what? Speaking of money, how about this? For my first 2 seasons of Northern Exposure, if you make, let's say $100,000 in this business, let's say I got $100,000 to do our movie, just cut it in half. You're taking home 50 because it's taxes at whatever percent that is. Agent, manager, there's 20 right off top. So whatever the number is, whatever it is, if it's $1 million, you're taking home 500. If it's 10 million, you're taking home 5. At that time, I was getting, for the first 2 seasons, $2,500 an episode, which turns out, to be 1,000 and change per episode. Even in the fourth season, Friends are already on, right? And I was getting, this is so funny. I was getting $7,000. I'd been nominated for an Emmy, a Golden Globe, my 4th season of Northern Exposure. And because of the contracts, I was getting $7,000 an episode. So I'm getting $3,500. So everybody, my whole family, they thought, I was super rich from the commercial money.
Yes.
I wasn't super rich, but who's not rich if you got $300,000? But I was not getting rich from Northern Exposure.
I didn't know
You know
this.
what I mean? Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so crazy looking back at that show, how little they paid us and how much they got out of it. But it was so fun. You talk about, look, I left in 80 and 10 years later, I'm, like you said, I'm on the cover of TV Guide. I'm on this hit top 10 show when we were in top 10 for a long time on CBS. So, my wildest dreams actually did come true.
Man, I mean, we could spend so much time talking about Sex in the City, and our listeners would turn up the volume, or My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and they would turn the volume up even more.
We're not talking about my private life here. He's talking about a TV show.
We're just going to keep talking about your private life because in 2002, you're going to the Oscars, I believe, and you're dateless. Oh. And so, and make sure I'm getting the facts right, but I had lunch today with a friend outside, and the only reason I had lunch with her today is because in 2002, you were set up on a date.
Yeah.
Take me back through that.
So my friend who just died a couple months ago named Norby Walters, he died at 92. I'm living in West Hollywood in a cool apartment that I bought in 2000. And Norby has this thing every year that I had been going to since 97 on Oscar night at the Beverly Hills Hotel, very fancy hotel. He would have a thing called Night of 100 Stars, which was all the sort of people that Hollywood on the night of the Oscars that Hollywood had kind of dismissed. So Rod Steiger, Burt Reynolds, David Carradine, Gary Busey, Stella Stevens, all these people that were very famous, but now they're not being invited to the Vanity Fair party, with Daniel Day-Lewis. They're relegated to Norby's party, which is a very, very fancy affair that like Martin Scorsese was the underwriter for it one year. So I had been going every year and taking, whatever girl I happened to be dating, kind of a couple's night. And this particular one on 2002, he said, Corbett, he talked like this, kind of like Jerry Maguire's agent in Jerry Maguire. He's like, Corbett, you coming to the party? And I said, no, Norby, I'm not dating anyone. Come by yourself. It's like, no, I'm not coming. That's a couples thing. I'm not coming by myself. He goes, I'll get you a date. And I said, no, you're not getting me a date. Later that day, I get under my door. He's on the 11th. I'm on the 7th floor. I get this list with 20 actresses in it. Now, I'm not going to name any of the other ones, but some of them are a little younger. Some of them are a little older. I'll tell you in private. I can only remember 4 of the people, but there's about 20. But the main man, he goes right down 1 through 5. And now he's going to call down and say, hey, Corbett wants to take you on this thing. He goes right down 1 through 5. And I see Bo's on there, like, Bo's on there. Now, from pop culture, I had known that her husband had died at the...
And just for our listeners, who are we talking about? Bo who?
Bo Derek's husband, who she met when she was 16, John Derek. They were married for 30 years. He died in 1999. He was 30 years older than Bo. You can look it up, folks. It's got a lot of controversy. He left the wonderful Linda Evans. He was 46 for this beautiful 16-year-old. And it was very scandalous. But they had a happy relationship, and Bo has had a happy relationship with Linda Evans, who I've come to know. She's wonderful. But he had passed, and so she was on this list. And so I circled her name, and I put a star in number 1, and then slipped it back under his door. And he calls me on the phone and says, one name? Corbett, one name? I go, it's Bo or nobody. And a couple days later, he calls me up and says, she wants to go. Call her up. And he gives me her number. Like, you're kidding. And so I call her number. And I said, hi, Norby gave me your number. She goes, is this John? And I said, yeah. And she lives here in the house we're in at that time. but she happened to be her good friend, Merv Griffin, who became my good friend, was taking her to the party at Norby's, right? But Merv came down with a flu. So it was just meant to be that Norby somehow got in touch with, he didn't call Bo. He didn't know Bo that well. Even though he knew her, he called her representative.
Yeah.
She passed it on to Bo, and Bo's like, I love him on Sex and the City. I'll go with him. And she just happened to be at Merv's hotel. He owned the Beverly Hilton down in Hollywood for a long time. And she was about a mile from me in West Hollywood. She goes, let's go out to dinner. I'm going out with my friends. The thing was like in a week, right? She goes, if we like each other, we'll go. And if we don't, that'll be that. And so we don't have to get tied down to the whole thing. I came down, hung out with her and her friends. We had dinner, some drinks, and we've been together ever since. Crazy.
It's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And it's so providential and so unlikely. All of it is super. Your whole story, John, is supremely unlikely. I'm going to read something that Bo said about you, not to me directly, although she would outside.
Okay.
I think agree with these comments. She was asked, what is it about John Corbett that you love? And then this is the answer. It's that twinkle in his eye. It's his humor. He has a lot of joy in him, and I feed off of it. The simplest things can make him so happy. So he makes my day brighter because of that, too. And he's got a wicked sense of humor.
Aww.
So that's what Bo Derek, Perfect 10,
I never heard that.
said about John Corbett. I don't give away my sources, man. That's how I get them. I made up that. I ChatGPT I'm like, say something nice about Corbett. I can't find anything online. And it made up that line.
That's so sweet. That sounds like Bo's words.
It is for sure from Bo. It's a beautiful line. But you hear that. What is it about her? You're a popular guy. You could be living anywhere with anybody. And 20 plus years ago, you and Bo chose each other.
Yeah.
So what is it about Bo Derek that you fell for and remain fallen for?
Yeah. Funny thing is, I was aware of what Bo looked like and the Bo Derek hair braids that she had back then, but I never saw 10. So the thing she's most famous for at that point, I never saw it. I never went to the movies to see it, and I never saw it on TV. So when I went to meet her, I just thought it'd be kind of funny because I always thought she was pretty and beautiful, and saw her on a couple little interviews along the way, maybe on Johnny Carson or something. So I didn't really feel like I knew her. I was captivated by her face. Funny enough, when I was in high school, 10 came out, I think in 79. And I was with my little high school girlfriend at her house. I remember it was on a Sunday, and our local Wheeling paper was a big, thick paper like they always are on Sunday. And there was an expose on Bo because the movie just came out. And I remember looking at that picture of her, and I can still, like I talked about, like it happened yesterday. I remember thinking, wow, I wish my girlfriend was that pretty, right? When I saw this great picture of Bo, I was just captivated by her face. When I saw her name on that thing, it took me back to that place. Like, I could go on a date with her if I circled this thing. You're kidding me. So when Norby said, call her up, and then I talked to her, we talked for, 10 minutes. She said, come over in an hour. I'm in room whatever. So when I knocked on the door, she opened the door. Now I'm 6'5". And from seeing those pictures of Bo and Dudley Moore, I thought Bo was probably 6 feet tall. I didn't really know that Dudley Moore was extremely short and she was taller than him. So I thought he was average size and she was long. When I opened that door, she was in her bare feet and I looked down. I think Bo's 5, 6 or 7 in her bare feet. She was just this petite little thing. I thought she was going to have more substance. And she said, hi. And she shot her hand out. When Bo shakes hands, she always sticks it straight like that. She goes, hi. And I said, hi. And she just lit up and she said, come on in. I'm getting ready. And I looked at her pretty face for just a few minutes. And then that kind of left. And it's like her energy took over. Yeah. It wasn't just this beautiful girl. She, you met her today for the first time. She's just is also filled with this kind of spirit in a way that she doesn't have almost no censor when she talks, and she just kind of says whatever she's feeling. And that was unusual for me because everybody's trying to generally put on their best face when you meet them for the first time. And by the time I sat next to her and hung out with her friends and saw how genuine she was with them and her real laugh, that sound that comes out. I was just kind of hoping that at the end of that night, I think we gave each other a hug and said, let's go to this thing. But part of me thought, oh man, she's going to call me tomorrow and go, you're great, but let's not do this. That's a possibility because I don't know her yet. So she could just be fake being nice to me. I didn't know. But I think we ended up talking the next day, and I just wanted to be around her always. I just wanted to be around her. She's such a good person. I mean, her mom is 90. She lives 5 miles from us. Her 2 sisters and their husbands and kids live 3 miles from us. Her father just died this past year. He lived to be 90. He lived a mile from us. So this whole house for all these years has just been filled. I'm an only child. My parents are gone. I'm an orphan since 2010. And they were still, back there. So I never got to see him. I never saw my mom really for the last 3 years of her life. So to now have this family, we just took her mom out to dinner. She gave me a life, she gave me a life from the start, from the first time I came up here. I'm just happier when she's around.
That's like a movie line that you just rehearsed right there. I'm just happier when she's around. It's so beautiful. I was going to ask you, during COVID, many couples who used to travel and work satellite, when they came back together because they were forced to, found they did not like each other. And it made for tons of conflict for power couples that traveled, and you're over there and I'm over here. You and Bo had the exact opposite experience. You both were super busy coming out of 2019, 2020 hits. You're stuck at home with a person you find out you not only love, but you like.
Yeah. Well, right. Hollywood's, when you're a woman and you're 30, you're done. There's a few that keep going, but for the most part, it's kind of over. Guys get 15, 20 more years out of it, and then the phone really kind of stops ringing, right? When you're a guy at 50, for the most part, hope you had a good time because, there's now 28-year-old guys, and so that had happened for Bo. I saw that happen where she just over the years the phone didn't ring much. So she was home most of the time. And I really, over the years, I would work a couple months a year and then be home. So for our whole time, like I was telling you earlier, there's some years when I don't work at all. I mean, look, if you like Big Fat Greek Wedding, right? Some people say, oh, it's one of my favorite movies. 3 weeks. I mean, I worked on that for 3 weeks. So, it's had some longevity, but that took 3 weeks of my time. Our movie took 2 weeks, and that's I did that. That's the only thing I did this whole year. So what do I do for the other 50 weeks, right? Bo doesn't really work much. So we were kind of used to that already before COVID. If it did anything, it reinforced how much I like to stay home, because if Bo didn't insist that we go out to dinner with people, I never do. Seriously. I don't really ever, her friends are my friends. I really don't have many friends. I got some guys I talk to on the phone that aren't close by, but she's lived here all this time. So she's got a lot of friends. So they become my friends, but I never suggest that we should take Larry and Leonard out to dinner tonight, so when that all stopped,
interesting. I
realized I could just never go out ever again. And I was the guy going to the store risking COVID with the mask and getting our shopping. I didn't want Bo to die. I was going to be the first one to die. And so we spent so much time at home. Her mom and dad at that time were older. We didn't want to give them the COVID. So that all stopped. They didn't come over. COVID was bad for people who, like me, are a little bit of a shut-in, because then it reinforces I'll be okay. I never actually have to see people again. It's a bad thing because I've always kind of been like that, a recluse. I think it's being an only child and not having tons of friends when I was a kid. It was bad for me because it took me a while to, when we finally could take friends out to dinner, I didn't want to go. Why don't you go? Take your sister.
So when you walk into a restaurant and you stop at every third table, shake hands and smile and share laughs with people, is that awkward energy? Is that you faking it to make it? Or is that, what's going on there?
You just hit it on the head.
Yeah, those two things?
Yeah, because I have to do that here where we live. So it's a very small town where we live in, right?
But I just so we're clear, you did that also in St. Louis. You stopped intentionally to be nice to people that you easily could have walked right past.
Well, that's part of the job, right? But when I'm back at the hotel and there's all the other people staying in the hotel, I don't have to have it on, but I had my COVID mask on. I have a pair of glasses. I have 3 pairs of glasses with no lenses in them that I put on, and then I put a baseball cap on, right? Because I don't want to freaking have to talk about myself to 9 people in the buffet line because they recognize me, and there's not a more boring conversation that I can have than waiting to get the mashed potatoes and somebody go, "Oh my God, is it?" No,
Aiden.
It's not. Yeah. So being on the set, I'm there. I don't mind doing it. But here's the thing. Everybody's time is precious, right? So John O'Leary or Beth O'Leary needs to go get a gallon of milk. I just need a gallon of milk, right? I want to get to the grocery store and I want to get home. I got stuff to do. I got to cook dinner for 4 kids. So John Corbett, who lives in this small town and knows everybody, just wants a gallon of milk at my only grocery store here. But guess what? When John Corbett goes to the grocery store to get a milk, John knows half the people in there. So that feeling that we all have when we just want to run in, get the milk, get home, I have that just about every time I go to the grocery store because I got other stuff to do too. So just a trip to the grocery store, I'm going to talk to 3 people, tell them what Bo's been up to, what I'm doing. And just when I'm done with the last one, I'll hear, "I thought I heard your voice." And now I got to do it. And so that's every single time. Sundays, no, I don't get Sundays off. Whenever I want to go to the grocery store, it's that. So sometimes I feel like talking and I'll go to the coffee shop and I'll get my latte and I'll sit there. And I hope that I see Sam or Leonard or Larry or Sally and go, "Hey, how's it?" I might yell out to them if they don't see me sometimes. So sometimes I'm in the mood to chat.
I'm going to pivot. You know John and Beth. You know their 4 kids. You also know John's mom and dad. You spent some time in their house because you shot a movie called Soul on Fire at the latter part of 2023.
Yeah.
Dude, you get pitched a lot of scripts?
No, not at this age. That's all behind me now. No, I don't get pitched a lot. I got a great agent. I've never done anything to promote myself. I don't have a manager. I don't have a publicist. I'm on no social media. Right? You can't find me on any social media. You won't see a picture of me and my feet at a beach. So my whole career, I haven't been aggressive about it. Trying to get a job by being seen at a party or anything like that. So now I'm at that place where would I rather go? I told you this earlier. Would I rather go to Little Rock, Arkansas for 6 weeks and stay in a Holiday Inn for a little bit of money and do a movie that I can do in my sleep? Because nobody's asking me to be in Schindler's List Part 2 as Schindler. It's always the nice guy boyfriend. Hey, chase the girl or chase Kate Hudson around the kitchen for an hour and a half and get her in the end. And that's my fault. Because I made all these romantic comedies, Sex and the City, Big Fat Greek Wedding, Serendipity, Raising Helen. So that's all people think of me. Even in our movie, To Get to Play Your Dad is a variation of those kind of characters. It's like, that's rare that somebody asks me to do something like that. But now at my age, they're not really asking me to chase a girl around the kitchen anymore. That's now somebody else's job who's younger. So that means the phone rarely rings with work, and that's okay. You gotta know when, I feel bad for the guys that still think like my biggest movie's right ahead of me at 63. It's like, no, it's not, buddy. It was in 1989, and there's a lot of people that think like that. I just know where I am in time and space.
So you talked about chasing the girl around the kitchen. You did not have to do that for Soul on Fire. You did have some pretty complicated scenes, though. You did have some running, maybe around baseball fields and around houses and around hospital wards.
Yeah.
So what was it about the script for Soul on Fire and eventually the reality of Soul on Fire that attracted you into the film?
Generally, the people out there don't know the movie business. So when you get a script, it's about 100 pages. It's an 8x10 size, 100 pages. And it's like a song. Like let's pick Roxanne, you don't have to put out the red light. Right, by the Police. Now, when I first heard that song when I was in high school on the car radio, I didn't need to hear the whole song. I knew 15 seconds in that I liked this song. I didn't have to wait till the end and go, do I like it? So a script's like that for me. I know out of the 100 pages, I know 10 pages in if I like the script or not. I don't need to find out what's going to happen. I can tell by the writing in 10 pages if this thing is worthy of my time in that Holiday Inn for weeks and weeks. So when I got through that first 10 pages, like, man, this thing is so well written. Then you get to the meat on the bone of what happened to this little boy. It's making me cry right now, but I don't mean to cry in your interview, but the fact is, what happened to you is nobody can really ever understand it,
So before you go on, man, I'm going to jump on top of you for a moment. I love that emotion. So what is it about thinking even about that little boy? Because I feel like I'm no longer that little boy. I'm this old dude with 4 awesome kids and a beautiful wife outside talking to Bo Derek. They're having a blast. I'm in here with her husband and we're having a blast.
Yeah.
So that little boy struggled, but doesn't struggle. So I don't feel that emotion anymore. And I haven't seen that emotion from you yet. And I'm curious, what was it about thinking about him that brought it out of you?
Oh, just, look, if I were your father for real, I got to play your father, right? To a little boy, we're just both actors, but they made the result of his body from the, immediately after the fire, within minutes or hours, you look incredibly real from having 100% of your body burned. And I've seen the photographs of what you look like when it happened. So I don't have kids, but I know what love is. And I know if I saw Bo like that, I would probably, if you were my son, this sounds harsh, and it's probably been said before, maybe it hasn't, but if you were my son at 8 years old and I was your father and I loved you as much as I love Bo or anybody else I've ever loved, I think I would. I would want you to die.
Yeah.
Because I would know what from this point on your suffering is going to be like. Trying to recoup from something like that. So I think I would just want you to be out of your misery as quickly as you could be, because I wouldn't want you to have to suffer one more minute of this, let alone whatever the years were going to be. I probably wouldn't be able to think of years. I would just be thinking in terms of, what's this going to feel like an hour from now?
Yeah.
But then, for whatever reason, you just didn't die. And, it's now a blessing that you're here and you're in one piece with or without your fingers. You're in one piece and you're always smiling. But in the moment of that, I would not, you're here. I have horses. I have German Shepherds. If my German Shepherd was completely burned, I would want him to stop suffering immediately.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would feel like that. I mean, you now have your own kids and your imagination can say, I never want, I've burned myself. I got a burn right here from a cigar that a guy burned me with. I can remember how that one little thing felt. I can't even imagine the feeling of your parents looking at you and seeing the suffering. Like everybody says, if it was Bo, I think of her as somebody I love. She could be my child or my wife or my sister or whatever. If I saw her suffering like that, people say I would rather it be me. I would trade places, So to look at you, as the 8-year-old boy is so. When we do those scenes, I didn't even have to imagine that it was somebody I loved, just seeing that image of, for one thing, when we did the thing, I caught a quick glimpse of of the makeup job that they did on him. And I didn't want to see it. I want to kind of see it for the first time on camera. So then when we shot and I ran into the room and I saw it, and I don't think in our movie, it's pretty gruesome. So I don't think, we talked about this earlier, that the people out there seeing the movie are going to have the reaction that they think they're going to have, because the movie makers know that you can't
throw it in front of them.
You can't flip people out like this, because it's a very hard thing to look at. But just seeing the fake job, and our makeup team was, they made it as realistic as they could. Yeah, I just, don't you think it's amazing that you lived?
The whole story is a miracle. And another individual that we've had on our podcast who was involved in the movie struggles with the word miracle, because this individual struggles believing in miracles. And yet, as I was talking off air with this person, I'm like, what else can you call all of this stuff? When an individual example of one little thing, whatever, the Jack Buck showing up is cool. A kid learning how to ride again is cool. Learning how to play the piano again, finding a beautiful wife, filming at a stadium in December when it's 74 degrees outside. Like, any of those things in and of themselves are nice.
Yeah.
When you start stacking nice day after day after day, it's not nice anymore. It's God's grace. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's an undeserved, awesome miracle. And I look at both that little boy for what he went through, but also the man that he eventually became. And I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
Like, that's, you said earlier, you always had that goofy grin on your face. Dude, I don't need a beer for it, and I don't need money for it.
Yeah.
Because it's recognizing how lucky I am. So yeah, do I think that kid's lucky to have survived or blessed? Completely. And not only to survive, but to have a robust life afterwards. Another thing that happens in our movie is it tells that story. So it's not enough to come home from the hospital and say, now endure, and we'll see you again in 60 years, and we'll roll you out of the house at that point for your funeral. I had a father and a mother who insisted I do more in my life. And without both of them, I would not be interviewing John Corbett today on his ranch in California. So I had mighty warriors making sure I knew that enduring this thing's not enough. Now it's time to go live. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a blessing. When you imagine people watching this movie, not just your performance, but everybody else's, including Terry, the makeup artist, and Justin Fears and Johnny and all these folks who did the work, man, among a couple hundred other guys. What do you hope people leave a theater with? So they watch Soul on Fire and then they go home, or they experience it for an hour and 40 minutes. What do you hope they feel while they're watching that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because when you make a movie, they said on our movie too, and I've heard this on other movies, and people say this movie is going to change the world, right? I don't ever feel like any movie changes the world, but it can change the world that this person is living in this way.
Moment.
So if this movie's done well, look, bad movies happen all the time. It's all subjective. Did we make a good movie or a bad movie? I think we made a good movie, but it's out of our control, because it's just pieces of a car now that have to be put together. Right? But here's what can happen if we make a good movie, and I feel like we've got the right people involved, and that's going to happen. Here's how it can change somebody's world. If somebody's having a bad day, right, and they see this movie, they go to the theater, or they watch it at home, or maybe this guy's wife is sick. My best friend since I was 5 years old just died of pancreatic cancer. And he's my only best friend in the world in September. He fought it for 3 years. But he would watch home gardening shows and shows where they fixed up cars and stuff, because he couldn't do that anymore, and he liked to do that. And those shows made him so happy. So if somebody's going through a hard time and they see our movie and it takes their mind off of, maybe I've got 3 months to live and I laughed, or I really cried. Maybe a guy hasn't cried because his wife's dying, because he just hasn't put himself there, but he'll see this movie and the crying like I did. It's a kind of cathartic release. And that's a little world that can be changed.
Yes.
His little world. Is it going to change the Ukraine war? Is On Fire going to change the borderline crisis? No, but it could change Frank and Donna's world, because they're in a world of hurt, and this gives them kind of a perspective on what might be possible.
We agree on all of that. So
Since the final question, John has used the restroom. The dogs come into the house. Bo Derek has joined us in the family room. Seated next to Beth O'Leary, Henry, Jack, and Grace as we wrap up our John Corbett interview on the Wouldn't Have Started podcast.
Okay.
John, you ready to run to the finish line?
All right. Did you get all the information? Did you get all the information you needed?
And then some.
Okay. John made me cry in my interview. I've never cried on camera before when it wasn't required to by the script. And then most of the time I couldn't do it. John made me I was very so emotional.
It was awesome. But now what we move to is a gentleman who started off in Wheeling and has ended up in California, and a man who should have ended up, if you really look at the cards you were dealt, at the bottom of the barrel, man. And you're at the very tippity top of it right now. It's very cool. So I'm honored and humbled to be in your house and among your family and wrapping up this podcast with these 7 questions with John Corbett.
All right.
And family. Here we go. Question
7
number 1.
questions. Okay.
7 rapid fire questions, Corbett.
Okay.
Sentence answers, not paragraphs. We need a roll.
Okay.
John Corbett, what's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
Do you want me to say the Bible?
No, I don't want you to say, I don't want you to give an answer. I want you to be honest with the answer.
It's definitely not the Bible. I've never read the Bible. Only parts. What book do you ever pick up? Do you ever pick up The Great Gatsby or Charles Dickens and just start looking at the middle and going to the end, or Moby Dick, like, oh, just start thumbing through here? No, you pick it up from the beginning and you read it all the way through. Nobody picks up the Bible. Do you know anybody? Have you ever read the Bible from cover to cover?
So I'm in mid-March right now for the first time, and I'm 46. So ask me again in 1 year and I'll have the right answer.
The most impactful book, I don't remember who wrote it, but there's this book called On Fire that I think the guy's name is John O'Leary. John sent me his book. Yes, your book is very impactful. I'll name another book, but it's a fantastic book. I mean, you worked so hard on that book. I love that. And I think I'm using one of the things from the book in my real life, which is, you said quick answers, but the section of, I have to clean my garage. I want to clean my garage. I'm using that in my real life already. So folks out there listening to me, pick that book up. It's an amazing story, but it's also our movie. And I'm not trying to sell you books for you, but if I had to pick the book, I read this book that was impactful called The Artist's Way. And it's just about opening up your creativities by named Julia Cameron. It's about opening up your creativity. There's 2 volumes, but The Artist's Way, it's called. Yeah.
What's one positive characteristic or one positive trait you possessed as a little boy growing up in West Virginia that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today?
Sense of humor. Wow. I had a wicked sense of humor as a kid. I found everything funny. Now I find that, I don't know, 13% of everything funny. I wish I could have that sense of humor that I had as a kid.
There's some of us in this room that would disagree with you because we think you're hilarious. If your home caught fire and all living things are out, and you have an opportunity of running back into this building that we're recording this and grabbing one item, what's the one thing you would grab?
In this back room, in the acoustic ceiling, I have a little suitcase with the $130,000 in it in $50 bills.
We're going to stop this podcast.
No, I'm teasing.
Right now, Jack is getting duct tape. Let's try and get Mr. Corbett duct taped up. This could go sidelines quickly.
I would send Bo back in for that. No, what would I grab? What would I grab? I don't know. Everybody says photos, I'm sure. I would grab, I don't need anything in here if everybody's outside. But if I had to grab something, I have the $39 Tesco Del Rey electric guitar my mom bought me in 1967. That I would grab that. It's a Sunburst one. It was $39. I would grab that just for fun.
If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous day and have a long conversation with anyone living or deceased, who would you like to be next to?
Well, my favorite thing to do in New York is sit with Bo Derek on a bench and make fun of people as they walk by in Central Park. But this, I wouldn't pick her for this because I would pick somebody dead. Why pick somebody living? You still might end up on a bench with them somewhere. So I would pick somebody dead because I'll never get a chance to sit with. I would sit with, there's 2 Beatles alive, so I wouldn't pick Paul McCartney or Ringo Starr. I would sit on a bench with George Harrison or John Lennon and make fun of people and just have a cigarette and a coffee and talk about life. Either one of those guys. I don't care which one.
There's room for both. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, my dad. I told you earlier, he was a nuclear welder and a watchmaker, and he got in some precarious positions being a welder. So he told me, son, whenever you have to do a job, any job, make yourself comfortable. So for him, that meant getting comfortable being upside down. And if you had to get a chair to do your job, get a chair. What are you doing bending over? Make yourself comfortable. And people also say that when you come into their house, make yourself comfortable.
2 questions left. If you could give yourself some advice at age 20, what would that version of John Corbett need to hear?
Pay more attention to everything and start thinking for yourself more.
John Corbett, it has been said that all great people and actors and friends can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like yours to read?
The big dummy didn't miss much.
The big dummy did not miss much. We feel fortunate to know that big dummy, to love him. Both Erica's nodding her head. I thought she was sleeping earlier while you were talking, but no, she was just agreeing with you. The big dummy did not miss much, and we're grateful that he not only said yes to the life ahead of you, because you didn't have to, but you did. But that life said yes back to you, man. It's been an honor getting to know you, and we look up to you. We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So John Corbett,
I love you. There's nothing.
No, your mic is now on mute. You can no longer speak. I want to thank you for the time today, for sharing the beautiful Bo Derek and your house with us, and for being part of our movie. My friends, that is my buddy, John Corbett. Today is your day. What a gift. Live inspired.